Hi, I'm Troy Stetina, and this is the new Troy Stetina Signature Series guitar, built by Dimis guitars. Dimis is a custom guitar builder in Greece, and he does hand-built, custom instruments, high-end stuff, rare wood, exotic stuff. He approached me and said, you know, what would it take to build the ideal guitar for you? You know, tone, playability, and everything. What's perfect? What would be ideal? And so we started talking about that and went through everything. And I'm pretty picky about tone, of course, and I've had a lot of compliments on the tone that are on the recordings that I've done, including the speed mechanics and all the rest of them. And I pay a lot of attention to that. And so I outlined for him all of what I'm after in tone, and he selected the woods and built this guitar and shipped it. And we put the pickup systems in it, and finally I plugged it in. And I was expecting, you know, it to sound good. You know, I'm playing PRS guitars. I didn't think anything could really be much better than that, or maybe a little bit or something, but I mean, those are good guitars and they sound good. So I was completely blown away when I plugged this thing in and started playing it. I didn't know that a guitar could sound like this. So I'm going to show that to you. I'm going to kind of demonstrate what it feels like to play it on a subjective side, and why objectively, like what are the woods and what do they do. So the reason we do that too is that if this is something that you are interested in or want, you can have one custom built for you. Alright, I'm playing through a little Vox Valvetronics practice amp. Nice high gain practice amp. And the first thing I notice is that this thing has a really nice tight low end when you do these broken rhythms with palm muting and stuff. Just sounded really good, really tight and punchy. You get that out in front of a 412 cabinet and you can really feel it. So I love that, and yet it's not so bassy that the bass is overpowering anything. It's basically filling, you know, that range where the guitar needs to be, you know, in the mid-range. The attack, when you open it up and you hit the chord hard, the attack, it's nice and solid and quick. It's like the high end is nice and smooth at the same time. So the next thing I noticed right away was that the false harmonics, you know, the pick harmonics, they just jump and they sustain. They're really easy. They're always there, a little stronger than I even kind of expect them to be, which is nice. They're always... So that's cool. And the other thing about the low end I want to say about chunks is that it's more even throughout the guitar, like even up on the D string. So you know, you got bass, tight bass there, even up on the third string. So anyway, just a lot of clarity. I just love that. Just love the way the notes, they're smooth. In fact, hate to say this, but you know, if I play and I'm not really warmed up and my fingers aren't really working that good, on this guitar it kind of hides it, which is cool. You know, we need all the help we can get, right? So that's what I noticed, is that the clarity of the guitar almost sounds like I'm playing more articulately than I am. Sixth intervals and third intervals. On a lot of guitars, when you add distortion, those thirds can start to sound really harsh, and it almost sounds out of tune. Even if they're in tune, it can sound a little messy or out of tune. This guitar is kind of like just the opposite. Even if it's a little out of tune, those thirds tend to sound nice and smooth and good. And I think that's just because of the general tone, or the smoothness of the high end on this guitar. So anyway, it's a joy to play. Everything sounds nice and even. Now let's talk about the pickups for a minute and the other different kinds of tones that we can get out of this. It's a very flexible guitar. In fact, probably more flexible than about anything else I've seen. Everything we've played so far, everything I've been playing, is on the humbucker. So what I want is, I want the humbucker sound for sure. And I want to be able to change to a single coil. And I don't want a single coil that's a stack. I'm halfway in between. I want to go to a single coil that's a true single coil. And these other single coils as well, you know, true single coils. However, we got to get rid of the noise, or we can't use those single coils in high gain settings. A lot of people just deal with that, like they may have this configuration, coil tap and 2 single coils, just knowing that at high gain they're going to make a lot of noise, and so they don't use those pickups at high gain. They're used for, you know, a variety of tone in cleaner environments, cleaner sounds. In this guitar, we have totally eliminated that noise problem of single coils, and they are true single coils. There's an active dummy coil that has been miniaturized and is put inside here. And what the dummy coil is, it's like a single coil, except it doesn't, you know, listen to the strings and make any sound. It just makes the characteristic noise. That's the only reason it's there. We take that noise, you invert it, and you combine it with the noise coming off of these, and the noise disappears. And here's the result of it. This is the noise coming off of the humbucker. Now there's always going to be some noise coming off pickups when you're going through high gain. And so that's kind of a standard, you know, level of noise. So there it is. And when I pull the coil tap to be on this coil, you notice that there's no difference. There's no difference in the hum level, you know, that characteristic, you know, that buzz from the single coils. And what that really means is that the single coils here are as quiet as a humbucker, and there is no loss in their tone. They are true single coil tone. And so what you get is the ability to use them in high gain settings. So I can go from single, like rhythms and humbucker, and then pull the coil tap, now notice that in the high gain setting, that single coil keeps up with any humbucker in terms of its gain. It's got plenty of gain. It's got a little bit flatter mid-range, and it's got a little bit more high-end, so it's a little more biting. All the same sustain, great sustain, and everything else. In fact, single coils even have a little richer harmonics and a little more nuance in their response. It's awesome to be able to use a single coil, a true single coil with high gain, especially in like settings where you're trying to differentiate between your rhythm sound and a lead sound. Like I'm doing instrumental guitar, or I record a solo, and I want that lead to be a slightly different tone than the rhythm so that the two sit next to each other without kind of stepping on each other too much. And this is an easy way of doing it then, just changing the pickup. And right there, my tone is changed just enough to differentiate it. And yet there's no loss. In fact, there's a little gain of more nuance in the lead tone. So there's the single coil in the bridge position. Now, of course, we got the middle pickup, and you'll notice again, the noise levels are comparable. Here's this one, comparable to the humbucker. And of course, it's a 5-position switch, so we can also do these two pickups with coil tap or without, and these two pickups. But to keep things a little more simple, I'll just demonstrate the middle pickup with high gain. There's a lot of smoothness there, and yet it doesn't get muddy. You know? So that's the middle pickup. It sounds nice and articulate even down here. And again, you know, thirds sound beautiful, you know, whether it's in the humbucker or here, all the way down to, you know, the this pickup, which of course is, you know, a little bit darker tone, but still you don't lose, you know, that the clarity of the notes. So that's this pickup. I get all those different tones, and I can use them all with high gain. So it's really unsurpassed in terms of flexibility. Now, on a clean tone, this is really nice to use, of course, as well. The coil tap, you know, get a really delicate. So, clean tone sounds really nice. You got a, and of course, any of these others too. You know, even more delicate down here. So, you know, this thing can just do a huge variety, and all of its tones are pretty awesome. So, love it. Now there's also a couple other things that are going on in the electronics that are really cool that I'd like to tell you about. And one is something called graphite shielding. And this is patent pending. Lamplifiers developed this. It's cool because graphite shielding, what it does is it helps inhibit RF noises, dimmer switches, you know, various static and unwanted magnetics coming in and affecting the pickups. Causing buzz and hum and that sort of thing. It does a lot the same thing that pickup covers do, and that's what pickup covers are for. You know, when you see the metal pickup covers over the pickups, the reason they do that is to shield the pickups from this interference and this noise. The problem with putting metal shields over your pickups, though, is that it kind of screws your tone a little bit. And they found, like back in the 70s, players, Santana and then all the hard rock players, they started taking their pickup covers off because it sounded better. Now the trade-off, of course, is when you take the pickup cover off, sure, it sounds a little bit better, but it also is more prone to that noise and the interference. If you want to live with that noise, okay, but you know, maybe that's a good trade-off, and you know, you have to make sure you're always shutting your pickup off right away, just making sure that that you don't have, that you're not too close to the lights and all that kind of business. Now, shields help a little bit, you know, significantly, a little bit on that. What we've got here is graphite shielding. And the cool thing about graphite shielding is that you get all the benefit of shielding without the drawback. The drawback isn't there because it's an organic compound and it's magnetically neutral in terms of the magnetics of the pickup. And as a result, it allows you to get a level of protection from noise without screwing your tone at all. Now the pickups that are in this guitar are a new line bilamplifier, and the line's called Animal Spirits pickups, and they got names based on that. So this first one, this humbucker, I will talk a little bit about what it is and why I chose this thing. The model is called Double Serpent, and what it does is it is not a super high output pickup. Instead, I opted to go for a strong, but you know, it's not a weak pickup by any means. You know, it's like maybe on the high side of medium. And the reason that I went for a pickup with that kind of output is this. How you increase, among other things, the main way that output can be increased in a pickup is by adding more windings. You know, the more windings on the pickup, the higher the impedance of the pickup, and the hotter the signal gets. The problem is, when you go to a hotter signal and the impedance rises, the top frequency that that pickup delivers falls. The hotter the pickup, the less high end you have on that pickup. And my theory about pickups is I would rather have the full EQ, the full tone of the guitar delivered, and then let the amp do its job of getting all this high gain. You see, back in the day, when amps didn't have the kind of technology they have now, you know, you needed to front end, you know, a nice strong signal into your amp if you expected it to break up nice. And you know, there were pedals and so forth that would help, but a strong pickup was a really important part of that. Now, with these high gain amps that we have, you know, whether it's a practice amp like this or you know, Angle is Special Edition is my main amp that I use, and that's a nice high gain amp. There's a lot of high gain amps these days that are nice. We don't need to hit the amp so hard, but I'd rather hit it with full EQ, and so that's what I've done here. This is about an 8K impedance pickup, kind of along the lines the original Gibson PAF style, kind of in that ballpark. Whereas a good distortion class pickup might be 10 to 12K or even higher in some cases. So we've backed that off. The magnets are Alnico. Alnico magnets, relative to ceramic or rare earth magnets, those are lower output, again, but smooth tone. So I'm going after tone, not output here. And I think that comes through, of course, and that's part of why the guitar is so responsive and you hear so much nuance in it. Also, having created the guitar with all of these great woods that I'm going to talk about in a minute, it sure would be a shame not to hear how the quality of them and the full range of what they are. So that's what this pickup is. And these pickups are they're called Coyote Trickster is the name of this series, and they are both ceramic high ferrite, so they're a little bit hotter output, but other than that, very very much like old school authentic single coil tone. And the reason that we went to a slightly hotter output in terms of the magnets here was so that they would hold up next to the humbucker, so that when you switch between one to the other, you don't have a big drop in signal level. And you can see here, let me get the gain on, that there's the humbucker, there's the single coil, here's the middle, and here's the neck. And they're all very, very even. You can switch between them without any significant jump or loss there. So finally, I want to come back full circle and talk about the guitar again in terms of why it sounds the way it does. And that's talking about the wood that's in it. That's really the most important thing. It's really the wood and the electronics both working together to create the sound. But let's talk about the wood now. This guitar is, the body has two different kinds of wood in it, and one of them is Indian rosewood. Indian rosewood is a rare, it's exotic kind of wood. It's very expensive. Very few guitars out there have an Indian rosewood body, and you know, that's because it's so expensive. But of course, you know, it sounds freaking great, and it's warm, and it's got great sustain. It's sweet. It's It's balanced. It's an awesome wood to make the guitar body out of. So start with Indian rosewood. Can't go wrong there. The next wood that's also in the body that is combined with that is cherry. Now, cherry is a wood that is dense and it has low end, and it's also good and articulate. It's bright and it has high end. And so when you, well, let me put it this way. One of my PRS, a lot of PRS guitars are like this, and mine is this way too. It's a mahogany body with a maple top. And the reason they do that is because mahogany is a very dark wood, a dense wood, and it has a nice low, a strong low end, almost a compressed low end, in fact. But it doesn't have too good a transients and highs. Maple, on the other hand, is exactly the opposite. It has a lot of transient, articulate highs, but no good low end, and not a very good sustain. When you put those two together, you know, you get the best of both worlds. That's the theory on it. And the reason I bring that up is because cherry is kind of the best of both worlds together, combined in itself. Although the low end I don't think has any kind of compressed sound, which I actually like better. You know, it's got punchy low end, it's articulate on top, and then you mix that with the sweetness of Indian rosewood, and you have everything is going for it right there. So there's the body. And that's right there a huge expense in why the guitar is expensive. Of course, Indian rosewood, it ain't cheap. So now let's talk about the neck. You can see on the back, the neck is this, it's this beautiful reddish, deep wood grain. This is paddock, and paddock is a wood that is very, very bright, like maple, even maybe brighter. Very articulate again, very responsive. Good transients. However, it's got a little more better sustain, I believe, than maple typically. And then on top, now he's got this swoop going on. So this is paddock on the top, and then this darker wood is cocobola, which is a species of rosewood, and that's on the face of this and down here. Cocobola is another rare wood. It's kind of oily and it's hard to work with, but it does a great job on fretboard. And it's like a rosewood. It's a very, you know, sweet, smooth, good sustaining wood. So when you add all that up, what you have is expensive wood that is very good sustain, good punch, good articulation, good clarity, good even low end response. And so it's no surprise that combined with you know, this pickup approach is basically no compromise. You know, it's kind of like you get to have your cake and eat it too. Now finally, let's talk about the aesthetics of it. I chose to start with the Tele body shape, and I did that because I just wanted it to be different. I wanted it to be outside of the box. You know, this day and age, shred, rock, metal, it's always double cutaways. Everything is a double cutaway, you know, and I don't have a problem with them, but if I'm going to do something unique, I want it to look unique. So we decided to start with the Tele shape, and then we've got a few things that really pull it away from outside of the box of that classic Tele shape and make it, we got the swoop going on here, which is kind of a cool modern look. And then of course we've got this scroll, the Dimis violin scroll. And that's his trademark, and it's also a perfect fit for me because, you know, I love classical stuff. I've put a lot of it into a lot of the books. That is a big part of how I developed the technique that I have, and I still love to play, you know, both with high gain and clean. And this guitar enables me to do all that in whatever tone I want to use. So that little nod toward classical works good for me. Also, when he was developing it, we were originally going to do a completely different color scheme over this, and involving oxidizing the metal. So the first step was he sprayed on metal. It's not paint, it's actually bronze. And I looked at it when he sent it to me and noticed how the light was picking it up, looking really nice and gold and bright, and then kind of this deep bronze. And I was like, you know, that's freaking awesome. Let's just stop right there. I just like it just the way it is. So that's the reason that it is the color that it is. So like I said at the beginning, if you like this guitar, or something similar to it, you want what I've described here, you can get one of these. Let us know, and we can have him build one for you. And if you want some modifications to it, you know, paint, color, I mean, even if you wanted to go with a double cutaway, or, you know, a different, maybe you don't want the violin scroll or something, you know, these things are modifiable to make it work for you. Since he's a custom builder, there's no problem making modifications. But in any case, you can be sure you're going to have an awesome guitar with no compromised tone, and the electronics ideally suited with those woods to make it really work and work well. So good luck with your playing, and I'll see you next time.